All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really wild concept: how a tiny 6-year window quietly dictates whether you're going to retire wealthy or spend literally your entire life trying to catch up. We're looking at the mathematics of time, and honestly, it is absolutely fascinating. Most of us think about wealth just in terms of our salary or how much we save or, I don't know, catching a lucky break on a stock pick. We totally obsess over the amount of money we're making. But what we're about to explore, it completely flips that script. Because it turns out, the amount of money you make actually matters a whole lot less than when you start putting that money to work.
Think about that specific window between ages 22 and 28. Most people just assume they can start planning for their future later on, but the math completely disagrees. Those 6 years are a massive crossroads where two totally different financial paths split. The tricky part is, when you're actually living through those years, the cost of waiting is basically invisible. You feel like you've got all the time in the world to build your career and enjoy your independence, but the reality is, the clock is already ticking on the absolute greatest financial advantage you are ever going to have. Your 20s usually feel like this chaotic transitional phase, right? So it's incredibly easy to just tell ourselves, I'll start investing later. It is such a common trap. You're navigating your first real job, maybe moving to a new city, probably trying to chip away at student loans. You're really just trying to find your footing as an adult. So naturally, that casual, I'll do it later mindset sounds like a perfectly reasonable strategy. We treat later like it's an actual concrete plan, instead of what it really is, which is just delaying.
And, well, we usually back up that procrastination with a really convincing excuse: I just don't make enough money yet. We look at our entry-level paychecks, see how fast they get eaten up by rent and groceries, and we convince ourselves that building wealth is just a luxury reserved for our older, richer, future selves. It feels totally logical in the moment, doesn't it? You tell yourself, okay, once I get that promotion or land that new job, then I'll get serious. Then comes the classic, I'll focus on money once life settles down. But financially speaking, buying into these excuses is a huge mistake, because these are literally the most important years of your life. Here's the hard truth. Life rarely ever just settles down. Actually, scratch that. It usually just gets way more complicated. By your 30s and 40s, suddenly you're dealing with mortgages, maybe a growing family, unexpected bills, the responsibilities just pile up. So waiting around for some mythical, calm period where you magically have heaps of leftover cash, it's a massive trap. And the numbers we're about to look at will prove exactly why. Okay, let's actually see how this plays out. Let's compare two totally identical investors, and the only difference between them is a 6-year head start. So we've got person A, who draws a line in the sand and starts investing at age 22 right out of the gate. And then we have person B, who decides to wait until age 28 to start. Now, in the grand scheme of a whole human life, 6 years feels like a blip. It's just a handful of years. It really doesn't seem like enough time to completely alter the trajectory of someone's entire financial future. Now, to make this fair, we are holding everything else perfectly equal. And I mean everything, right down to a very modest $200 a month contribution. We're talking the exact same intelligence, the exact same salary, the exact same investments, and the exact same market conditions. Neither of these people has a trust fund or a secret inheritance or insider knowledge, no crypto billionaires here. They're just regular folks putting away an achievable $200 a month. That's what, a few nice dinners out or a daily coffee habit? And this is where it gets really fun, because this perfectly illustrates the absolute magic of compound interest. You don't have to be a math whiz to understand what's happening under the hood here. It's taking that modest $200 and multiplying it not just by market returns, but by the compounding power of time itself. Time is the exponential factor here. The longer your money sits there growing on its own previous growth, the steeper that upward curve becomes. Your money starts making its own money, and then that money makes even more money. It's like a snowball rolling down a hill. So what's the result? By the time they hit retirement age, person A ends up with over $1 million more. Let's just sit with that for a second. Over $1 million more just for starting 6 years earlier. Just to put that into perspective, despite putting the exact same monthly amount into the exact same market, those 6 early years created a staggering $1,047,000 gap. Person B is literally decades behind in wealth. Think about that. They did the exact same work, made the exact same monthly sacrifices, and invested in the exact same things. The one and only difference was that person A started those 6 short years earlier. They just sat back and let the clock do all the heavy lifting. You know what the truly terrifying part of all this is? Most people between 22 and 28 don't feel behind yet. They get to enjoy this false sense of security because the pain is totally delayed.
When person B hits 28 and finally starts investing, they don't feel $1 million poorer. They don't get a little text alert saying, hey, you just lost $1 million. They just feel responsible for finally getting their act together. The real financial consequences won't show up for decades, right when they're nearing retirement, and they realize it's mathematically impossible to catch up without drastically changing their lifestyle or working well into their 70s.
So, the ultimate takeaway from this explainer isn't some secret overnight wealth hack. It's deeply understanding that while money can compound over time, lost years, they can never ever be earned back. Time is, without a doubt, the single most valuable financial asset you will ever own. You can always hustle for promotion, you can pick up a side gig or switch careers to bump up your salary, but you absolutely cannot manifest more time. Time is strictly greater than money. The sooner you leverage it, the easier your entire financial life is going to be.
So, I've got to ask, and I want you to be completely honest with yourself right now. How old are you? Have you started? Are you inside that critical 6-year window right now, or have you already passed it? Look, whatever the answer is, regret is a terrible investment strategy. Whether you're 22, 28, or 45, the mathematical truth remains the same. The best time to start was yesterday, but the next best time is absolutely today. Take this math, apply it to your own life, and get moving. So what's your next move going to be? Let's get a conversation going in the comments.